here today to demonstrate the use of and setup of the Raptor by TorcUp. First, we're going to talk about safety issues. Then we're going to go over the Raptor. Then we're going to go over the FRL and actual setup of the FRL. Then we'll show use and setup of the Raptor. First, let's talk about safety issues. In any industrial setting, we're going to want to wear a hard hat. We have safety shoes on. We're going to use protection on the hands. We're going to use hearing protection. We're going to use safety glasses. If I could show you the card that comes with the Raptor. This is important because it gives all the information on the use of the Raptor. We'll go over that later. That's important in the actual use of the product and setup. This is a 500. Comes in different sizes. Today we're going to show you the 500. All the setup is the same. There's various different options which we'll go over, but to show you now we have two reaction arms here, but there are a variety of different reaction arms that are available. Of course, there's a socket that goes with it, which will fit on your nut, and we'll also go over that later. There's a few tools required for the FRL. Right now we're going to take the FRL out, and we're going to show you the setup of the FRL. It's important that you use the FRL that's given to you by TorcUp. This is a custom unit. It's intended to be used with the Raptor. We'll go over some of the specifics. There's a filter which will filter out water and particulate matter. There's an oiler that will provide oil to the air motor. It's important that we use an oiler, and it's important that we also use a regulator. Unregulated air, uncleaned air, or without any oil, we're going to ruin the air motor. We'll go over a little bit more about the air motor later. Basic setup comes with a hose. The hose has the correct attachment. It's shipped with caps. Setup requires that we remove the caps. And we insert into the unit. Proper tensioning is required. To go over a little bit further, as we move downstream, the oiler here, I'm going to have to turn this to get it apart. Bowl is removable to get any material out. Dirt, any type of material. There's a drain on the bottom, allows you to drain water. Any water in the line gets trapped on the inlet. There's a filter. The outside of this filter can get gritty, so maintenance needs to clean that. So once again, the inlet has a bowl for trapping dirt, particulate, and also water, and it has a drain to allow you to drain the water out. Pull down and rotate to remove. The oiler, same type of operation. To fill the oiler, you need to take a large screwdriver. You open the top. We've supplied you with oil, although you can use industrial air tool lubricant. The gauge, provide a tag here to remind you to look at this gauge. It's important that the gauge not be broken in shipment. It is pre-installed. Damage to the gauge is important. If you have any, you'll notice it right away, so please check the gauge. You can remove the tag at that point. This is the operation of the regulator. Knob's turned. Once we set it up and we have pressure on it, you'll see that as I turn this up and down, I get a change in pressure. So my inlet now, we're going to set that up. So I'm going to screw in a fitting here. You may use other fittings in your facility. We use these fittings here. This fitting is important. It's also important that you provide pressure to the unit and flow. We have minimum requirements. If you can't get to maintain the pressure, you're not going to be able to run the unit. So we need flow and we need pressure. It depends on your facility as to how to set that up to get it. We're using 1/2-inch lines here. So I'll throw some tape on there. Once again, this fitting is not provided. You need to provide the fitting that you would use in your shop. You may use other types of quick connects. You can also put the hose in directly. There's no reason why you can't use the hose directly. But we do recommend that whatever you use, you get full flow. This is our discharge hose. This came with the unit, if you recall. It was in the box. Once again, we provide a cap. Move the cap. One thing I didn't point out, but in most cases you're not going to have a problem, but you do want to look in the hole, which I did do. Make sure you don't have any type of material inside the unit. Fittings should be tight. Do not over tighten fittings. If you over tighten fittings, you can ruin the unit. And it's basically hand tight and then about a 1/4 turn. And the inlet assembly, if you noticed, I got it pretty tight. So it's about hand tight. I'll give it a 1/4 turn to snug it up. So once again, snug it up. Don't over tighten it. It's important that you use lubricator oil. You can see the oil through the sight. It's important that you maintain the air supply, keep it clean, and keep the water out. If you do have water, press the little discharge, you'll bleed the water out of the system. Now we're going to go over actual use of the Raptor. Taking the TorcUp supplied hose to connect up to the FRL. We use our quick connect. That's your connection for your air in. The air comes in and is supplied to a pneumatic motor. This is the motor portion. That turns at high RPM. It turns a gearbox. This is the gearbox. The gearbox is designed to allow for rotation, which you'll see in the actual use of the product. This is necessary so the reaction arm will line up. Now we're going to show removal of the reaction arm. The reaction arm uses a ring to hold it firmly in position. Removal of the ring requires a small screwdriver. There's a slot that the screwdriver fits in. The ring then comes off in a helical, in a spiral. The ring fits in a slot here. Once that's removed, the arm can come off. To show you how to put that back on, you can have a variety of different arms, which will show you some of the arms that are standardly available. This is what comes with it. It's a cast arm. It's used with a standard socket. Let's put on the castellations, press down. The ring goes into the groove here. Check for any damage anywhere. And just reverse the operation. The ring goes into the slot very easily. You wrap it around like a helix, like a spiral. Snaps into place. Double check that it's snapped in everywhere. Now your arm's ready to go. We're going to show you now some other options for the arm. This is a Raptor 2000. Same air motor, everything basically the same, but it's a larger square drive and has higher output. This is the larger arm that's used with a Raptor 2000 and 3000. You can see it's held on in the same manner. In this case, we put it on to a 6-inch extension. So this gives you an idea of some of the options that are out there. The extension lines up with a square drive. In the same way, I react my torque based on the castellations on the spline. I then tighten up my, in this case we use set screws to hold the 6-inch extension. Extension comes 6-inch, 12-inch, and 18-inch. Repeat that for the other two screws. Now I have a 6-inch extension. I'll take that off. Now I can take this arm off in the same manner with the screwdriver, put that arm back on here, which is how it came. So once again, we have various different extensions, reaction arms. We can make fabrications. Check with us and we should be able to react in any position. And just to review the basic operation of the unit, we have our air coming in, we have our toggle forward, reverse. This is our air motor. If you have any problems, we have our address, our phone number on the back. And you can read this further. This is our gearbox. It rotates. This is our reaction arm. We'll go over the actual use of the product right now. But it's important that you understand the different components. Okay, now we're going to illustrate actual tightening and use of the Raptor and the FRL. So we've set up our FRL. We're using our plant air. In this case it uses a standard connector we use. You'll have to provide your own, as I mentioned. We went over the FRL. I've checked I don't have any water in here. I've checked I have oil in here. This sight glass is important. What we need to do is run the Raptor after I've set it up. In this case I'm going to 30 psi. And I'm just going to run it so I can see that I'm getting drips of oil. And that's important. This can be shut off. If this is shut off and I'm not using oil, I'll ruin my air motor. So what I'm going to do now is run it, and I'm going to look for drips coming down on the oiler through the sight glass. I've run that about 15 seconds. I didn't see a drip. So I'm going to turn it a little bit. I'm going to run it another 15, look for a drip. Okay, I've gotten a drip to form, but that's still a little bit light. You need oil in this motor for it to really perform to its fullest. Okay, there we go. Now we're getting it to drip. Yeah, so I'm looking for 3 to 5 drips per minute. If I get a little bit more, I'm going to use my oil up and I'm going to make maybe a little bit of a mess of my discharge. If I use a lot less, obviously I'm going to burn my motor up. So we talked about the reaction arm, put the reaction arm on. Now we're going to talk about the socket. We also have to look at our reaction points. Look for fit of your socket. It's a standard socket. We provide all the sizes. Take the ring off, pull the pin, line the pin with the pinhole. Now my socket's attached. Okay? Now I'm going to want to know what torque I'm putting onto this nut. This nut is hand tight right now. I'm going to want to put a torque onto it. That's when we go back to our calibration sheet. Now in this case I'm looking at this 500 and I want to get about 200 foot-pounds on it. That's what I want to put on here. So I'm reading my chart. I get to 200 foot-pounds requires a 30 psi. Okay? Once again, I read 204. If I wanted to get 258, I'd need 39. If I wanted to get a full, at 50, I'm getting 50 psi. I'm getting 310. If I want to keep going up my chart till I get up to 85 psi, 495. I also can look at this output linearly across my pressure and my output. But we prefer to actually look at the calibration on a per psi basis here. So once again, I've come to this point. 30 psi is going to be giving me 204 foot-pounds. There's a second sheet, which is a handy sheet. In this case, I can go right off of this. This isn't every 10 psi, it's not every 1 psi. So if I don't need as close a calibration, there we go, 30 psi is 204. We cut these up, everybody can have one in their pocket. Alright? So I have my pressure coming in, I have my hose coming out, I've set my pressure up to my 30 psi. I have my oil drip. I have my hearing protection in, got my hard shoes on, hard tip shoes, hand protection. Now let's talk about the reaction arm. This is a pinch point. When I run this, my preference is to hold my hands up above the motor. I don't want to be near the pinch point. When I run this, I need to make sure as I come up on my close to my hip, I go slow, just pulling the trigger lightly, and I hit. Now I know I'm reacting. I'm reacting against the bar that we've put here as a reaction point. I could potentially react against the nut. It depends on your application. Or as we discussed earlier, I may need extensions. I have a standard socket here. So now I've set my pressure to 30 psi. I'm going to back this up. And I went in reverse. I can see I'm not dropping. My gauge pressure didn't drop, so I expect to get full flow through the air motor. Full flow will allow me to get that full 200 foot-pounds. Still at 30 psi. My motor stopped. It stalled. At that point, I've got 200 foot-pounds on there. Same fastener, I want to loosen it. Once again, keep things free from the reaction arm. So now I'm breaking that nut free. Okay, so let's stall it out once again. foot-pounds. Okay, so now we're done. We've tightened the nut up. Made sure we got the pressure on the gauge so we know our foot-pounds of torque are correct. Let me take our air line off to store it. Disassemble our socket. Just reverse. Basically everything's in reverse. Check to make sure my arm looks fine. Once again, the back has a service number on it as our address. Call us if you have any issues with it. Same thing for the FRL. Check to make sure I still have oil. Check to see that I don't have water in here. And now I can store them. Alright, let's summarize briefly. So we showed a 500. We talked about the air motor. We used a 1000. This is a 2000. We talked about the air motor. We talked about the trigger, forward and reverse. We talked about the gearbox and the reaction arm. We told you to keep your hands away from the reaction arm in the application. We then talked about the FRL. We explained the need to add the oil. We explained the need to make sure we get one drip while it's running, 3 to 5 every minute. We explained when we bring our air in to make sure that we have clean air. It's also important for us to get the pressure. In the case of our demonstration, we needed 30 psi to get 200 foot-pounds out of our 500. The card that comes with the unit is important because it allows us to look for pressure, tells us what the foot-pounds are. Each unit is calibrated. Each unit may be just slightly different. It's important not to go over the maximum. In the case of a 500, that's 90 psi. In the case of a 3000, that's 70. Look at the card, use the card. Online, you'll find user instructions. They're much more detailed than what we went over here today.
The Raptor is not an impact style wrench, but it uses an air motor similar to such. Instead of a hammer, the Raptor uses gears to multiply the torque. The result is a much smoother operation with reliable and repeatable torque output as compared to an impact wrench. The Raptor uses a reaction arm to react to the torque delivered to the fastener. The arm is painted yellow. Keep hands and fingers away from pinch points. The end of the arm requires a proper high-strength metal reaction point to rest on when it stops rotating. TorcUp has several standard reaction arms that should cover your needs. Additionally, we can supply a weld disc that you can customize to lengths and configurations that suit your special needs. TorcUp can also work with you to build a custom arm. Swivel joint and/or socket extensions may not be used with the Raptor. The reaction arm needs to be immediately adjacent to the socket to avoid high bending of the nose and square drive of the Raptor. TorcUp carries extensions that move the reaction into wheel wells, down into valve boxes, or in any application that requires the added distance from the nose. We can also provide offset gearboxes that shift the square drive in situations where there is an overhang or for long bolts such as found on heat exchangers. The Raptor is designed for use in conjunction with the TorcUp FRL. Users are required to check that the filter is clear, water has been dumped, and that the oil level is full and dripping at 1 to 3 drops per minute. Water and dirt in the air supply and lack of oil are shown to damage the air motor and reduce performance in life. The Raptor is designed to give torque at less than maximum air pressure for most shops. This is done so that users can get the airflow and pressure needed for required torque before maxing out their air compressor. However, high pressure and the resulting over torque can damage the Raptor and its attachments. In all uses, follow the maximum pressure as shown on the calibration sheet.